Welcome back to Chatter's Restaurant and Bar at Elam Shack on the Coach Tim Beck Show, presented by CDL Electric. Gorillas up at St. Joe on Thursday to open the season. Earlier we had our Vital Signs trivia contest for the Gorilla Nation Mobile Fan Club, and question was, who kicked the game-winning 44-yard field goal with 6 seconds left in regulation? Pitt State beat Western that year at St. Joe 31-28. That was in 1992, and that was a big play along the way as the Gorillas would reach the national championship game. The options were Josh Vargas, James Jenkins, or Jeff Wood, and the correct answer was Jeff Wood. Game-winning kick against the Griffins. He also had big kicks later that year in the quarterfinals, made a 39-yard field goal with 3 seconds to play. Pitt State beat North Dakota 38-37. North Dakota State that was, and so that was a big play along the way. And, you know, people forget that year he had to stop against North Dakota State in overtime, but that previous game against North Dakota was a barn burner as well. You were defensive coordinator in those days, and, yeah, Jeff Wood that. But, you know, what I take from that is a 31-28 win over Western. You have had some hard-fought games with Western. I know they beat you a couple times, but regardless where it's been played, there have been a lot of games that seems like decided by a single score.
Yeah, that's probably the team that we've had, you know, maybe as many close games with them as we have with anybody else in the conference. You know, a lot of the other teams that we go back and forth with, but every once in a while there'll be a blowout here or there. Missouri Western seems like it's always down to the wire.
Yeah, they're a team that's sometimes tough to match up with, but they're tough to figure out too because they have a history for stubbing their toe, and hopefully it's on Thursday for this year. We haven't talked about the defense yet, and starts up front, obviously on both sides of the ball, and I can group together kind of your line and linebackers. If you take those 6 positions, top 12 players from a year ago, I think 10 of them are back, and so no substitute for experience. I know you feel that's a group that can really set the tone for that side of the ball.
Well, you know, I think, you know, Missouri Western has been talking about how awesome they're going to be up front defensive line-wise, and I really believe with our front 6, our 4 D linemen, and our 2 inside linebackers, we're going to be very good. And Nate Greiling obviously returns as leading the nation in tackles, and then we add Luke Stringer, who's 6'4", 6'5", 250 pounds, and he can run and do some things. And so it's not going to be easy to hand the ball off and run up against that front 6. Defensive tackle-wise, they've done a tremendous job and got a lot of experience back with defensive ends. So, you know, we have high expectations, and we think that our front 6 is going to be really good.
A guy like Nate Dreiling, you lead lead the nation in tackles. It's a great player. He comes from a great football family. His dad, highly successful coach. How much of what he can do is just a byproduct of being around the game his whole life, and probably has absorbed some things you can't coach?
Yeah, there's no question. Nate's different than most kids his age, in the fact that his dad drags him along to coaching clinics in the summertime, and he's been around football all his life, and he spends extra time in the film room. He watches a lot of video. He has a great knack of the game, and yet he works at it really hard to try to get an edge and get a good understanding of what the offenses are doing. So he will be a tremendous leader for us over there. And
Luke Stringer's a kid, also in a great football family, and you know, dad and brothers that have played here, but a guy that's bounced around, outside linebacker and an old alignment, some defensive end, and now in his second year in there at linebacker. So while he hasn't had big numbers in the past, what kind of potential is there for him?
Well, he's got great potential because he can, like I said, he's a big guy that can run and do a lot of things, and you know, he has been a guy that it was hard to kind of figure out what position we were going to leave him at, and finally figured out last year he just needs to be an inside linebacker, and so him having another year experience there will really help him, and you know, the tandem of those two in there with a defensive line in front of them, like I said, we have a good feeling for those guys.
You know, you mentioned defensive end. Spencer Worthington and Gus Toka are, you know, 3-year starter type guys that they seem to have that big motor, and Spencer's certainly not the biggest guy. Joe Uzzle's another very active player that probably plays bigger than he actually is. So it seems like all 3 of those guys, though, the big motor, and that's a big part of what they do.
Yeah, you know, we go against each other quite a bit, and when it's time to, if it's 3rd and long and they know they can peel their ears back and rush, boy, you have to watch out. And then you throw in Will Grissom, and Will's been hampered a little bit with injuries in the past, but feel he's healthier and and he's another guy that you can throw into the mix there. That those guys are going to be able to get after some quarterbacks.
And down tackle, down lineman, J.R. Jones, another guy that's experienced here, redshirted the 1 year at Hutch, but he's back now for his 4th year. And John White, Cody Moore, all experienced from last year. Tank Burns and Matt Anderson are younger players. Do you feel pretty good? You have 4 or 5 guys for those couple positions?
Yeah, we really do. We have have those guys that you talked about with the addition too that we have some ends in Uzzle and Toka that have played inside as well. So it gives us some flexibility with our ends and our tackles to move some people around and do a lot of things. And they have a good understanding of what we're trying to get done up front, and so that will help that group. But being able to move around, and again, like you said, the addition of Cody Moore in his 2nd year here, he's a much improved player than from a year ago, and then Big Matt Anderson is a guy that is maybe not in quite as good a condition as we'd like to get him in yet, but he could go in there and play and not get knocked off the football because he's very strong and very aggressive.
Safety-wise, you lose a good one. Alex Kuhlman, who's with us here tonight, now on your coaching staff. But Chaz Smith back, he was your 2nd leading tackler. Some preseason accolades for him. You moved Paul Robinson from corner to safety. Jake Catloth's a program kid, and Brian Sanchez has played some there as well. So at your safeties, Jared Vinoversky moved over from receiver, and Naeem Forrester. I'll throw some names out here, but a couple different positions we're talking about. But as a whole, how about the back end of that defense?
Well, that's a question mark, for us. I think we've got some really good players there. We got to figure out if we got them all in the right spots, and if, it's a comfort thing for all of them. But we have moved Chaz from the bandit position to the free safety position, so he's a good, solid football player that knows the game as well, and so we want to get him in a position where he can make some calls and do some things for us. And moving Paul from corner to the strong safety position, I think, has been a really good move for us. He feels comfortable there. You've got a guy that's played corner that if he has to get locked up on a number 2 receiver, he can cover him man to man, and that's a trend on the way the game is today. There's not very many people that are going to line up in 2 tight ends, 2 backs, and run it right at you. And so if they're going to spread you out, you have to have some faster guys on the field.
You look at cornerback, and there's not a team in the country that has enough guys there the way teams throw it around today. But the familiar names, Israel Mazalarian, Elijah Olabode, and Josh Heimerman a little bit. Cornerback as a whole, I know he's still going over the summer. We're trying to look at some things. But how do you feel about your corners?
I think we're going to be improved there. Now, some of them don't have as much experience as you'd like, obviously, but Elijah's the guy that's been there and done that, and he knows the drill, and have hopes for him to have a great senior season. And then we're going to start the other side. We're going to start Arias Heron, who had a tremendous spring, redshirt freshman from Booker T. Washington, and has done a good job. And then the other freshman that we're not going to redshirt, Devontae Bosby, has come in and done a nice job. He's got a lot to learn yet, but got great potential, and he's a little bit longer. He may be 6'1", give us some length there, because it's really hard to find those corners that are taller than 5'11" that can turn and play man coverage, and we feel like he's got that potential.
When you talk about overall depth and certain positions, you're going to have better than some years, depending on a cycle of things, but when you talk about a Joe Winsheffel or Jake Catloth or Josh Heimerman, how important to have those system guys that you feel you can trust, whether they're the same type of players as your starters or not?
Well, there's no question. Jake Catloth is a great example of a guy that's just worked himself into position, and those are guys that they're going to die for you. They're going to do exactly what you ask, and Jake's improved himself tremendously from a year ago, and so those program guys are extremely important. And they give you, maybe they may not be a starter here or there, but they give you quality depth and a guy that you feel like you can put those guys in, and there's a comfort level there knowing that they have some experience, they have games under their belt. And they definitely help you on special teams and those types of things. But having an experienced guy that can go in and play some snaps is extremely important.
Given you do have some experience at every level of the defense, what are your biggest question marks or unknowns you think on that side of the ball?
Well, I think the biggest thing is secondary-wise is making sure that we've got everything covered. Again, I think that we're talented there. One other young man that I think that we need to mention is probably Jason Pete. He's a transfer for us from Omaha, a guy that we looked at out of high school, and and he's another guy that is going to help us in the secondary. And every day he's improving every day. So I think it's just a matter of making sure that we have the right people in the right positions, and making sure that our communication is good back there.
Yeah, he's a nice, rangy-looking kid. Probably still needs to fill out. Jared Vinoversky moving from receiver to safety. What's that transition like?
The transition hasn't been as fast as we thought it might be. You know, he really, when we first, it was kind of our idea initially. We talked about moving him over there, and because he played a lot at receiver for us last year and became a physical presence for us on the offensive side. And Coach Colin talked about how out of high school they thought he was going to be a really good safety. So we approached him and asked him if he'd be interested in moving over. But it's just taken a little bit longer, and that's, nothing against Jared. Sometimes it just takes a little time to make that transition and get, understanding of what they're wanting to get done.
And Naeem Forrester is a guy you brought in at California Junior College. He didn't play last fall. He was here in the spring, so maybe a rust factor, new system, moving halfway across the country. But I think the upside's pretty big on him. What kind of player can he be for you?
Naeem's one that, started real slow in the spring for us, and again, I think setting out a year just makes such a tremendous difference. You lose it so fast when you don't play. And so Naeem came in this fall and looked improved over the spring. Again, it's being out has hurt him a little bit, but I think as the farther we go, the more it'll help him. And Naeem's is a physical player. If he gets you in his crosshairs, boy, he can unload on you. So he's very, very, very physical guy that will help us in that area.
Well, secondary very important again, the way you defend sideline to sideline and all those things this day and age. All right, one final break. When we come back with Coach Beck, we'll turn our attention to Missouri Western up there to open it on Thursday. Stay with us, that and more when we come back.